Welcome to the Hurdle Podcast, NBA edition. We know it's been a minute, maybe 2 months, but it's been, it's here. We got it. All right. Before we jump into it, we haven't told Avery about our new sponsor, so let's plug them right now, guys. If you're looking for the best ticket app in the game, head on over to SeatGeek right now. Use code Hurdle Podcast. $20 off your first purchase. NBA season, we're getting right near before the All-Star break. If you're still on Christmas break, got family on Christmas, plug the code in. Go to a Jazz game. Go to, I guess the Sonics aren't a thing anymore, but go to like a Trailblazers game, I guess, even without Dame. But yeah, Hurdle Podcast in the code when you use SeatGeek to get your tickets. Green's a good deal, red's not. And yeah, enjoy that discount. But we got to jump into some NBA because
code Hurdle Podcast.
Yeah, we'll link
spelled out. It's in the description, so use that link.
No excuses not. What do you think about that, Avery? What do you think?
Out of all things I was expecting, like Montana State Wildcats tire and lube, and I was that blew my mind. Congratulations, guys. That's awesome.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I joked with Bailey. We joked, we're like, oh, I thought like our first one would be like, like a little small business in Bozeman. But we're like, we went right up top and we went.
I was expecting the daily yarn, get half off yarn, 2 hours of free knitting.
All right, guys, jokes aside, use SeatGeek, use the code. We'll have it in the description and we'll link it in our Instagram. But yeah, we got NBA to talk about because again, 2 months without it, a lot has shifted. We'll go over standings first. We'll go into some injuries. We'll recap about the last week of games and like big events that happened before, like Steph breaking the 3-point record, Clay coming back, all that good stuff. And then we'll end it with some players most likely to be traded, and we'll give our destinations for those guys. Obviously, Ben Simmons is a hot topic right now. When hasn't he been? Because he's such a great basketball player. But yeah, let's go into the standings here. We'll start out west first. So Rockets at the bottom. They are 12-31. Thunder barely above them. 13-27. But hey, we're committing to the rebuild. What can I say?
2045.
New Orleans, 15-26. Yes, sir. San Antonio, 15-26. Sacramento, 17-27. Portland, 16-24. They have big injury news coming out of there that we'll get to. Minnesota, 20-21. Clippers, 21-20. 21-21 for the Clippers and the Lakers. Nuggets are 20-19. Dallas at 22-19. Top four now, Utah, 28-14. Memphis at 3 at 29-14. And then you got the Warriors 30-10 and the Suns 31-9. So yeah, let's break down the West a little bit, then we'll jump to the East. What jumps out to you guys?
I mean, Clippers and Lakers really just disappointment.
Yeah, I was gonna say 7-8 seed. You wouldn't expect that out of these teams, but injuries have been a big factor for both of those teams.
Yeah, and I mean Kawhi being out all year for what it seems like until really the playoffs roll back around. They're not really going to have a huge jump up. And then Davis coming back in a week after he had something with his knee going on, tweaked his knee up, and that made him out for 4 weeks, which he's constantly hurt. I think those two are huge. I think for me, it's Memphis at 3, which is kind of just insane when you think about it. Desmond Bane's really stepped up to the plate here in the last month or so. And now they're only 3.5 games out of first with a 10-game win streak. So I'm sure when we go through this schedule of games, I'll just be saying Memphis win, Memphis win, Memphis win. But they're absolutely on a tear right now.
I think maybe a surprise because now they're kind of putting it together. Maybe Minnesota, they're the 9 because they're always either on the cusp of the play-in or, I think they're kind of figuring it out. I think you could argue they maybe have one of the more talented rosters with Towns, Russell, and Edwards. And then you've got some key guys coming off the bench and, at some other positions. they're kind of now putting it together. I think it'll be fun if they can really develop more as a group, because now they're really a lot of individuals, but they haven't really developed that group mindset like the Phoenix Suns, Warriors, Jazz, teams like that. So that's gonna be fun to watch. And then obviously Denver now, Jokic is pretty much still the guy there because of Jamal Murray's going to be out for a little while longer till I believe next month and a half, coming off his injury. But they're still at the 6th spot, which is impressive to say. And Luka's dragging the Mavericks to 5 and Kristaps has had a pretty good year too.
Yeah, definitely.
And then maybe I don't know, a surprise for me is New Orleans being this low. I get that they haven't had Zion, but Devontae Graham's been playing pretty well for them. Same with the Spurs with DeJounte Murray, Devin Vassell. They're just not putting it together. I don't get why a Popovich team isn't putting it together, but there's not.
Do we have a timeline on Zion's return?
I heard he hasn't been cleared to even do basketball activities, but that was about 2 weeks ago.
Well, I can clearly tell that he's enjoyed himself in this extended off season.
Yeah.
It says he's out at least till end of February.
End of February. Wow.
Yeah,
that's big.
That's almost the whole year then.
I have to get him jogging up and down the court.
That New Orleans food's treating that man way too well. We'll just put it that way. That gumbo and jambalaya, man. Oof. But all right, yeah. Let's shift to the East. The Magic are the worst team in the NBA right now. They are 7-35. Wow. Detroit is 9-31. They're kind of stringing some games here together. Indiana 15-27, third from the bottom. Big shock from the Pacers. 17-23 for the Hawks. Knicks are 21-21. Bailey Celtics are 21-21. The Wizards 22-20. Toronto 20-18. Charlotte 23-19. Cleveland 24-18. So they've kind of cooled off from their hot start like we expected. Philly 23-17. Milwaukee 26-17. Miami jumps up 26-15 to that 3rd spot. Brooklyn 26-14 at 2. And the Chicago Bulls 27-12 sitting on top of the East.
My take is I can't believe that Bradley Beal is able to string this team together for forever. This is absurd. I feel like he's just got no help.
Yeah, I mean, his
help. They started so hot.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they started really hot. They won their first 10 or something like that. Yeah, the Wizards. Yeah, I'm also surprised they're still above 500. I know. They're on a 3-game win streak currently, but I mean their differential is negative as terms of wins and losses. So they're really a losing team when it comes to point differential. But yeah, I'm surprised they're hanging on. I think my take here is New York and Atlanta not even making the playoffs right now, especially Atlanta. Trae Young's been going insane. And in my opinion, they still have a very well-rounded roster with Bogdanovich, and they've surrounded Trae Young with guys that can really shoot, and then Capella is just a rebounding monster. So I think for me, with Atlanta and that team, I'm surprised that they aren't at minimum the 9 seed, most likely, at least the 9 seed, just because that roster is way too talented for them not to be. And then Indiana is kind of the same thing because that roster is very, very well-rounded too, and they're deep with Chris Duarte out of Oregon coming in this year and getting buckets, a rookie. And you got guys like Sabonis and Turner and LeVert and Brogdon. Their starting 5 is none of those guys are all-star caliber players. They're not perennial all-stars, but they're all very much above average at each of their respective positions. So they should be much better than 15-27.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I think for me, I'm with you, Bailey. Atlanta, it seems like they're just kind of falling apart because there's reports that John Collins doesn't like his role right now. And he's hinted at that he wants to trade after signing that big extension off Atlanta's run. So he might be a guy we talk about later in trades, but I think really it's what we expected. I think when Cleveland and Washington go off to their hot starts, we said, pump the brakes a little bit. They're still going to be probably like a play-in team. And Cleveland's on the cusp of that. Washington is slowly falling. The Hornets are looking really good. LaMelo, Bridges, Hayward, they're figuring it out. They're putting some wins together here, but really, I mean, before the season started, I said Chicago is going to be number one in the East at the end of the year. Right now, about halfway they are. They just look so rounded. You could argue DeRozan's an MVP candidate right now. They've just meshed so well with all the pieces they've brought in the last year or two that they can be very scary, especially when you look at Brooklyn and you go, all right, if these two teams play each other in the Eastern Conference Finals, at most you deal with Kyrie Irving for 3 games because he can't play road games.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised with Chicago's success. I did not expect them to blend so well. With just bringing in Levine and DeRozan, I just felt like it was just a little too small of a group. And then Vucevic, I just didn't expect it to fit so well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't give enough credit to Billy Donovan and how he's had this ability to really make these pieces fit. The rotations he's putting together. Sometimes he goes small ball with DeRozan at the 4, and then brings Caruso in to bring more defense to that backcourt by moving Levine to the 3. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, Avery. I mean, I wasn't extremely high on Chicago. I thought they'd definitely be a playoff team with this roster.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the constructs of it, Lonzo and Caruso are great defensive players, but it's like between Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic, I was kind of looking at it in the front court. I'm like, where's the defense going to come from? Where's the rim protection going to come from? But in a modern NBA where if you can put up the 111.5 points per game that they're putting up, which I believe is 3rd in the league, you don't need rim protection. So when you're putting up the insane amount of points that they do, I agree. I think another one for me is Cleveland. Like you mentioned, Logan, Darius Garland's step up as a starter I didn't think that pairing with Sexton would work out as well as it has. Darius Garland has really stepped up not only as a scorer, but as a playmaker this year. Because they're
especially with Sexton out.
Yeah, because they're a small backcourt when they play together. Because I think Garland like 6'1", and I think that's what Sexton is like 6'2". So
team Jared Allen also has really been showing out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm heavily invested into Evan Mobley. I think he's got almost Anthony Davis levels of potential that I see for his future. Because I mean, like you said, he has the rim protection that Jared Allen does because he's bringing about the same blocks a game for 5 times less the money right now because he's on a rookie contract. But and like Laurie, the addition of Laurie Markkinen in there, and now Love is back. So their front court, they've almost gone completely the opposite of what the normal NBA is doing, which is a lot of guards and getting up and down the court really quickly. And they're slowing the game down. And they're still putting points on the board because their big guys are very well. I think they're just missing a small forward to really complete this roster. And maybe Okoro's that in the future as a 3-and-D kind of guy. But I think Cleveland really has high potential. They've done a great job for the first time ever rebuilding this roster without LeBron James.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Toronto at 8, they've been shaky at times, but Scotty Barnes looks really good right now. Van Vliet's really showing out right now. So, they just need to get Siakam rolling a little bit, and that team can make some push late. And let's not forget, the Sixers, Bucks, and Heat are quietly very good.
Yes.
Giannis is insane right now. Jimmy Butler's insane. Tyler Hero's playing insane. And the Sixers at 5, honestly, with all their drama going on right now, are playing pretty good considering that their other all-star isn't even playing right now. It's been pretty much put on Embiid, and he's pretty much carried the workload and gotten the Sixers to a 5 seed, much like Luka is with the Mavericks right now.
Yeah.
For sure. So interesting stuff, getting near the all-star break. So we'll see how it shakes up, end of the year. But just some injury stuff. Ricky Rubio tears his ACL. Same with Colin Sexton. So both guards for Cleveland, depth-wise and starting-wise, out for the year. Michael Porter Jr. is out for the year. He has to have back surgery again, which was the concern with drafting him so high. But when he is healthy, he's been balling out, especially for my fantasy team, but for the Denver Nuggets. And they're expecting Jamal Murray back. So if they're in a playoff situation at the end of the year, they're getting healthy Jamal Murray back with Jokic, who's, I mean, we kind of skimmed over Jokic, but Jokic is very good for the Nuggets, pretty much carrying them to a 6th spot. Let's see what else. Really, it's so Dame Lillard's out 6 to 8 weeks with some sort of abdominal surgery. It was kind of weird, but he's out for a big stretch here. And as if, McCollum's been hurt, now your backcourt's completely hurt. The Trailblazers right now, I know they're sitting at 10, but you can't be feeling good if you're a Blazer fan, because your team without Lillard.
Yeah, I do believe that this injury could push Lillard to want out even more, honestly.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I think it very well could.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, actually. I never really thought about that. Just because, like, how much Portland struggles without him, and now no CJ, so he's really going to be watching these games from the sideline, really analyzing if he wants to stay or not.
And it really depends on how he returns also. I mean, if he'll come back 100%, if he doesn't, he may just want to move to find something better, because he just hasn't had that team around him where he can rely on them.
Yeah, it's all going to depend on how Portland management handles him in that way. Because say we're 6 and 8 weeks down the road, and Portland's still fighting at this 10 spot to sneak in, and they rush him back 2 weeks early. Lillard's not going to be very happy about that. I know how competitive of a player he is, and I know how loyal he is. He's kind of like Kobe in that way. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. I know he wants to stay, but I don't know. Times and circumstances aren't great, and all signs are pointing him to leave. So
this is like that worst time for an injury like this to happen, because, he's kind of in that prime window, and with all the talks earlier in the year of like, is he going to go? Is he not? That just has to derail you as a player, because I'm committed to Portland. And they get hurt. So then it's like, well, I don't want to waste my best years here in Portland if we're not winning. So, I mean, a contender could really go out and get him and pretty much lock up a title at this point. I mean, if we're being honest, like if the Lakers went out and got him, if the Jazz went out and got him, if
Sixers maybe even.
Yeah, Sixers, Miami maybe, It's interesting to think about, and I say Miami because like it's no shot at Kyle Lowry, but if you have a chance to get a Damian Lillard, I mean, you would give up a Kyle Lowry for a Damian Lillard. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Other big injury, Bam Adebayo. He's out for a while with a thumb injury. Another shot to my fantasy team. Brooke Lopez, for the Bucks, who was very big in the finals, is out till about playoff time with a back injury for the Bucks. One of the bigger ones, Zion, hasn't played all year. That gumbo. He's most likely out till about March. So, I mean, if you're the Pelicans and you're not even close to contending for a play-in, at that point you might as well sit him out for the year, I would think. But
they're a game and a half out. Because the Blazers are 16-24, so they're barely hanging on too. So, Brandon just hit a big shot. I think it was last night for them to get a win. So, and they're hanging on.
I think they almost need to clean slate some of these role players. It's just not fitting well for them. I'm not getting rid of Brandon Ingram. I love Brandon Ingram. With that combination of Zion, we haven't really gotten to see that work out yet, due to injuries. But I think just their role players are not there for them, and they're not fitting correctly.
I think trading away Lonzo was a huge part of that too, because I think Lonzo, with how he was developing, I I don't know what his 3-point percentage is this year, but I know last year it was starting to hit here near the high 30s, and he's still a great defensive player, being 6'6" at the one. Is a huge advantage with his quickness and athleticism. He's really starting to peak. And I wanted to see that grow when he can distribute to guys like Ingram and Zion and get one or two more shooters in there. I thought they had super high potential this year because now they have Valanciunas. And I don't know. They kind of sold the bag on getting rid of Lonzo there. I thought that was a mistake.
Me too. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, look at him in Chicago right now. He's got Chicago at a number one spot, being that lead point guard, that distributor of the basketball. We mentioned Paul George and Kawhi yet, right? Or have we not?
No.
Have we addressed that? Okay. So Kawhi is most likely out to the right near the playoffs, and Paul George might be out for the year with elbow surgery. That's a big blow for the Clippers, who are now, again, one of these teams barely hanging on that 7 spot. If you don't have your 2 superstars, I think the Thunder pick is looking very good right now.
Load management.
Load management.
Hey, exactly. Kawhi's on a big year of load management. This is the year of load management for Kawhi.
Yeah.
Lonzo shooting 42%.
Right,
So there you go.
43%?
Yeah, he's got two steals and a block a game, which is like defensive player of the year numbers. So there you go. Just want to chip that in.
Oh. And to think they swapped that out for Devontae Graham, who's having a decent year, but
And
Pelicans
Eric
aren't winning.
Bledsoe, I think. They have Eric Bledsoe.
I think they got rid of him, didn't they?
Yeah, they traded him to the Clippers like immediately. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Moving pieces. The other big one, in LA, Anthony Davis. He's expected here in the next weekish, but he's one of these guys that's so good. And like we've talked about, like, I think we can all agree, like, he's what gets this Laker team over the hump most of the time. LeBron's good and all, but like the Lakers win or lose because of Anthony Davis. And when he's not there, I don't care if you have LeBron and Westbrook. You're not winning games because obviously they're not. They're at the 8 spot. They're at 500. So, I mean, Davis is so good, but he can never stay healthy.
I think LeBron needs Davis pretty bad right now, just so he can take on that load. I mean, LeBron's just he's going on a tear right now, but it's just gonna wear and tear on his body, and he can't take this full load, I think. I mean, you got Westbrook, but he's just not he hasn't found his way in the system yet, and he's just taking a little too many shots and turning over the ball too much.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I know LeBron is looking like the best player in the league right now. I mean, over the last 10 games, he's averaging over 30 points, and it's like 32, 8, and 8 or something like that, something stupid. Yeah, Anthony Davis, we saw it in the bubble. He is the X factor of the Lakers. You know what LeBron's going to give you night in and night out. But if AD pairs that with a big game, it's almost a guaranteed win for LA. And I'm with you. Westbrook really just hasn't fit in the system whatsoever. Like you said, I mean, he's playing fairly sloppy. I mean, he just plays. They say he plays so hard. He plays a little out of control as well. So it comes with that. And I love Westbrook, just with the passion he plays with. But his ability to attack the rim when he doesn't turn the ball over is extremely valuable. And then because he can kick out to almost anyone because that's how quick he is. But his decision-making sometimes is a little questionable as long as was his ability to create his own shot or even just shoot wide open shots. Because you see people are literally putting centers on him, just sitting him in the paint because he can't shoot. So it hurts the Lakers' ability to space the floor. I'm hearing he might get moved, and we'll talk about that in the trade rumors, but I just think that would help with their floor spacing a lot more, which is so vital in the modern NBA.
Positive part is that Malik Monk, though, lately he's been going on a bit of a tear, and I think he's going to be that young piece that they need. And hopefully, I was high on Malik Monk when Charlotte actually drafted him. I've kind of been waiting for him to get those minutes and get a right fit and a feel.
And Kendrick Nunn, too. I mean, he's a great backup one to have there in LA because you saw what he did his rookie year in Miami. and he was very efficient. He can shoot, he can create off the dribble, and he can play make just enough for. And LeBron's going to get the ball in the big moments. So if they can just have a secondary ball handler, those moments where the game isn't at large, like a Kendrick Nunn, I think that's very valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that thing with this Lakers team. They're very deep, like young deep, but it just hasn't been clicking. Like, and it might be because of Westbrook, it might be because AD's out, but the Lakers are looking shaky. Other injury stuff, it's pretty much COVID. We really haven't had to deal with that except for the boys on the Empty Net podcast, because hockey gets canceled all the time. NBA kind of is, but there's just a lot of guys out with COVID. Rudy Gobert just got it again. So there's just so many guys out with COVID right now that, I mean, we'll get into Utah's game tonight, but it really proved in Utah's game tonight that they were the last team in the league to have someone hit the COVID list. And then it's been a domino since then for them. And now they're looking a little shaky when they're falling out behind this hot Memphis Grizzlies team.
Very much so. Okay, we're going to move into where it's going to recap games over the past week or so that have been very prevalent. I guess before we start, we can talk about Curry's all-time three-point record. What an accomplishment. I mean, it's just insane. Not only A, the amount of threes he's shooting, but B, the percentage he makes them that. Defenses know he's going to come off 1,000 screens a game and hit stupid shots from 40 feet out that no one can guard. And it's really just kind of just take a knee and just bow down to what he can do past the 3-point line, because honestly, he's already hit 3,000. He did that. I think 4,000 is very well in the realm, because I mean, his record year, I think, he was on pace at the start of the year to hit 402. I don't think he's on that pace anymore. I think the record's like around 370, which is set by him, of course. And if he does that for 3 or 4 more years, he can easily crack 4,000 and really set this record into a stratosphere that no one can really touch. So yeah, huge shout out to him.
I mean, if you think about it, who is going to break his record once his career's, I mean, just only one person pops into my mind, and I'm not super high, but like Trae Young could have a chance. But just how quickly he's gotten to these high numbers, I don't see anyone coming near it in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, look at what the Warriors have done with that. Championship after championship after championship. They get one bad year, and now they're back contending. So, I mean, it's just insane to watch because, like you said, it's one of those records that if he gets that high up to near 4,000, it's almost like Stockton's records. Like, you can't see anyone really getting to Stockton's records for assists or steals, because in today's NBA, it's just rare to see someone get that many steals, let alone assists. I mean, the game's shifting to this 3-point shooting. So, I mean, maybe when we're 60, 70, there's going to be someone that maybe does. But, like, for the next while, no one is sniffing that at all. And it's
someone touched 13 assists in just an average.
Yeah. I don't.
Westbrook. That's all I can think about.
Yeah.
I'd say Celtics Rondo, but that's, yeah. And Chris Paul a couple years, but yeah, that's really about it. And no one really averages double-digit assists anymore. I know LeBron did 2 years ago, but yeah, that's what I would think about. So shout out to Curry for the all-time 3-point record. Ray Allen's my favorite player of all time, so it hurts a little bit, but it was inevitable. It was inevitable. So yeah, we're gonna roll into we're gonna recap this week's set of games starting Wednesday, January 5th, rolling all the way through to when this video is recorded, Wednesday, January 12th. Here we go. And then just stop me when you guys really want to talk about a game or a player. Detroit, Charlotte. Charlotte beats Detroit 141-11. Philly, Orlando. Philly goes by 10. Joel Embiid has scored in every game in 2022. He scored exactly 31 points. So there you go. Kind of interesting stat. That's like 6 or 7 games. Houston, Washington. Houston comes up on top by 3. San Antonio beats Boston by 2 on, I think, a DeJounte Murray game-winning layup. if I'm not mistaken. Brooklyn beats Indiana, Durant with 40. Golden State beats Dallas by
And
7.
that was Kyrie's first game back since being able to play road games and coming off the COVID list. So, I mean, only beating the Pacers by 8's whatever, but in the long run, it's bigger to finally get Kyrie on the floor for this team, because when all three of those guys are playing, that is unstoppable. So once everything else gets figured out, this Nets team's going to really be rolling. But yeah, it was fun to see him back on the court. It's been a minute.
I think the only thing that makes the league interesting right now, because I mean, Brooklyn is, you just look at them and their roster and they just look like complete contender favorites. But the thing that's really kept it interesting is just the off the court problems, really. You can't really tell if they're going to mesh together well because they haven't really been played together, with injuries and then Kyrie being kicked out for a while. Harden also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brooklyn talent-wise, I think hands down has the best roster in the league. I think they have the greatest potential to mesh well when they play together. There's almost no sight of them losing just because of their sheer offensive ability to score the ball. I mean, Brooklyn's second in the league in scoring and points per game, and they haven't had Kyrie basically all year. So they're just going to add more offense into the mix, push the pace even more, and really just they're going to score the ball really at will when you have these offensive talents, because I think James Harden's probably the most underrated playmaker in the league, in my opinion. I think his ability to pass is bar none. He can really get 14, 15 assists a night if he wanted to. But he's a scorer. He's a scorer first. So,
I mean, everyone that is scoring, but I every time you see it every year, he's got like 36 points. And he's got 8 assists right behind it.
Mm-hmm.
8, 10. He's just always around that range.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. But moving on.
I think maybe sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I just think maybe for like the scoring part of this, why they're so high too, is the impact Patty Mills has had in Kyrie's absence, because he's really stepped up in that leadership starting point guard role coming over from San Antonio this offseason. And frankly, I think he's one of the key pieces for this Nets team moving forward, because if Kyrie can't play home games, it's obviously Patty Mills starting at the point, and he's been playing very well. He's been really the only one that stayed healthy or off the COVID list for this Nets team, because KD's gotten on it, Harden's gotten on it, and Kyrie's obviously been on it. So, I mean, really, Patty Mills is quietly could get like a most improved player. I'm not saying he should, but he's playing insanely good for this Nets team right now.
I've always loved Patty, even in San Antonio. He always seems to show up in just the big time.
Which, I mean, after last year, in the playoffs, they showed they kind of need one more veteran guy that can be a backup one and can handle the ball when either they're on the road when Kyrie's not going to be playing, or even when Harden's hurt. They can have him be that second, third ball handler, which is huge in big moments. Moving on, still January 5th. Toronto beats Milwaukee by 6, Siakam with 33. Minnesota beats OKC by 8. Utah gets Denver by 6. Bojan Bogdanovic with 36 in that game. Miami beats Portland by 6, and then Atlanta beats Sacramento by 6 as well. And then moving on to January 6th, a lot of sixes. New York beats Boston. Fournier with 41. I think we can talk about that. What the hell?
He only goes off against your team.
And he was on our team last year. It's no wonder he didn't do
exactly.
it.
He plays good against your team, didn't play good for him, and doesn't play good against any other team in the NBA. So it makes so much sense.
It's the Garden. I swear. Just magic.
It's stupid. I think he hit like 8 or 10 threes or something ridiculous. 10 threes.
Yep. And were they down by like
they were down by 25. Yeah, they were down 25. Yeah. And Fournier literally just caught fire. Tatum had 36 in a loss. So that just shows you the impact Fournier had on that game. Memphis beats Detroit by 30, and their high score was Ja with only 22 points. Detroit's really bad. New Orleans beats Golden State by 5, excuse me. Brandon Ingram with 32, and then Phoenix gets the Clippers by 17. Moving to Friday, January 7th. Embiid with 31 yet again. They win by 19. Milwaukee gets Brooklyn on prime time, if I'm not mistaken, by 12 on the road. So that's a big win for Milwaukee. Toronto gets Utah by 14. Van Vliet with a 37-point triple-double. Highest amount of points for a triple-double in Toronto history. So there you go there. Chicago gets Washington by 8. Levine with 27. Dallas gets Houston by 24. Minnesota beats OKC yet again, I believe, on a back-to-back almost. And Minnesota wins by 30. Denver beats Sacramento by 10. I want to talk about Jokic a little bit. I'm down to talk about the MVP season. I think he should be the MVP again this year. The numbers are just sheerly unheard of. He shoots 26, 14, and 7. He's tied for 11th in assists in the league as a center. He's averaging 14 boards a game, which is stupid because he's not the most athletic guy. He just gets such great position. Like this game against Utah, he had 26, 21, and 11.
Against Gobert.
Yeah, against Gobert with 2 blocks. Just stupid numbers. And not only that, he stretches the floor 35.4% from 3. I mean, just the value's unmatched. His ability to play make, especially from a front court position, is really something that hasn't been seen since probably Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was a very underrated passer, just to be able to create for others off the high post and the way they ran that offense through Ginobili and Parker. But yeah, I think even though they're only 20 and 19, I think Jokic, he'd be my back-to-back MVP this year.
I think Jokic, if he had a better than average defense, I think he'd be maybe the best player in the NBA as of right now.
I mean, stealing a half a game ain't bad. He's also just a touch under a block, which is, and he just can't jump. So
he's a bit unreliable in the pick and roll defense.
He's not a great rim protector.
No.
Yeah, I think that's the only part of his game that is lacking. But I don't think you're really ever going to get that because that's just not his play style.
No, he's not built for that.
I mean, yeah, I kind of agree. Jokic, great year so far. But, I mean, for me, I hold MVP a little different. I look at it as, all right, you take that person off a team. How does that team look? I think taking Jokic off Denver's huge. Like, Denver's a very bad team without him. I mean, if they're healthy and have Jamal and Michael Porter, I mean, they're a decent team without Jokic. I mean, Giannis is just too unreal, man. Like, Drew and Middleton have been out with either injury or COVID, and he's got the Bucks at 4 right now in a very competitive top half of the East. I think right now mine would be Giannis, but I don't hate the Jokic one. Jokic is unreal passing the ball. He's so great offensively. Like, you could argue one of the greatest offensive centers of all time, and he's doing it without really anyone else, and he's still getting a ton of assists. So, but I mean, I think right now for me it's Giannis, but no knock on Jokic. I mean, a white guy playing that good in the NBA, you gotta love it.
Personally, if I had to choose, with my brain, I'd say LeBron, but with my heart, I'd like Ja Morant. I mean, just the way he's been playing. Obviously, he's not at that top spot yet. Maybe not even top 3. But I just like to see him continue to do it. I like seeing kind of the underdog pulling it off.
Yeah. Another interesting stat for Jokic, I guess. His player efficiency rating is 32.16, which is the highest of all time.
Damn.
So there you go. Beat out Giannis from 2019, 2020, where I think he averaged, he averaged 28 and 14 on 60% shooting, basically. So yeah, Giannis was insane.
Dang,
Um,
Bailey out here statting that.
yeah, I needed that one. I knew it. I just couldn't remember that number. So yeah, number one all
There you
time
go.
PER. That's insane.
That's insane.
Going back, let's see, where were we?
We're on
Denver, okay.
Saturday.
Yes, or that was Saturday. Thought that was. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. That was Friday. Yeah, Denver beating Sacramento. Okay, 2 games left in Friday. The Lakers beat Atlanta by 16 on the road. LeBron with 32. And then Darius Garland, like we said, stepping up with 26. Cleveland beats Portland by 13 in the final game on Friday. Moving to Saturday, a little bit of a shorter day. Memphis gets the Clippers by 15. Jaren Jackson Jr., who's also had a great year, steps up here with 26. Charlotte beats Milwaukee. Giannis with 43 in a losing effort. Terry Rozier steps up to the plate there with 28. Orlando
I was
beats.
gonna say quietly. Sorry for the Hornets. Quietly, they have kind of a scary big three. Like, you got LaMelo, who's a great facilitator. You've got Miles Bridges, who's really having a step up year. And then you have the vet Gordon Hayward, who's always going to consistently get you about 20. So I think Charlotte is a very dangerous team in the East. If they don't have to play in the play-in, if they secure a top 6 spot, they are a very dangerous team. I mean, you saw it here. They might not have been able to shut down Giannis because no one can shut down Giannis, but they beat the Bucks by 8, and the Bucks are very high up in the standings right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Saturday's games. Okay. Orlando, Detroit. Detroit gets Orlando because Orlando hasn't been very great this year. Gary Harris though with 28 in a losing effort. Sabonis has a career high against Utah. 42 points.
Everyone has their career high against Utah.
Because Gobert ain't good, man.
I remember, dude, okay, back when the Jazz really sucked. I always remember my grandpa, we would watch Jazz games, and every night it seemed like they were giving up career highs. Like, I remember Kevin Love getting his career high in Utah, and then he turned around the next day and beat the career high in a back-to-back against Utah. And I sat there and shook my head. Like, it's insane that Utah gives it up at this point. But, I mean, hey, good for the bonus, I guess.
And this was a crazy game. I mean, Sabonis went 18 for 22. Donovan Mitchell had 36 and 9 in a losing effort. I don't think Gobert played because Whiteside led the team in rebounds. But Lance Stevenson and his comeback, 14 assists, career high in this game against Utah. So there you go. There's another career high for you.
Wow.
Hey, they signed him to the rest of the year. So, I mean,
He deserved it.
I don't know who's gonna be there after the trade deadline, but I mean, Lance might be a piece for this Indiana team going forward, maybe into next year if they bring him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could definitely carve out a prominent role player bench spot. Almost if they make the playoffs, and he's really a 6-man kind of guy in the playoffs when he's on. When he's off, he's a little frustrating to play with. But when he's on, he's streaky, but he's a fantastic player and really entertaining to watch.
He might blow in your ear every once in a while to get you going.
This man's just made it back and back again.
Yeah, really. Moving on, Boston at TD Garden, back-to-back against the Knicks. They beat them by 24, Jaylen Brown with 22. And then Miami beats Phoenix, which Phoenix hasn't even hit double-digit losses on the year yet. Tyler Hero with 33. As Miami beats Phoenix at home by 23.
I think quietly Hero is probably going to win 6th man of the year just because his shooting off the bench for that Miami team really boosts him. Because, I mean, Kyle Lowry's not the greatest shooter anymore. So then when you get Hero coming off the bench and putting up around 25 plus a night, that's a huge boost to that second unit that's not as strong as their starters, obviously with Jimmy Butler and Bam in the lineup. But I mean, quietly probably should be 6-man, maybe locks it up already, but Miami again at the 3 spot with very good bench play.
How much is Hero averaging?
Let me double check that.
It's around 20.
21, 20.6.
Wow.
That
That's
really-
holy crap.
Yeah, 21, 5, and 4.
That's why they call it the sophomore slump.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, Hero's been peaking this year. And they have some undrafted talent too that has really balled out for them. Like didn't mention him earlier, but when they beat Portland, Max Struss with 25, undrafted guy, plays guard for Miami. They have is it Yurt7, big center, foreign player that came down. He's been fairly valuable. He's like second or third on the team in rebounds a game. So they're getting great quality minutes out of undrafted guys that we've really never heard of coming into this year. So yeah, moving on. Brooklyn gets San Antonio by 2 in overtime. This is starting Sunday, January 9th. LA gets Atlanta on the road by 13. Washington beats Orlando by 2. Kuzma with 27. I think he had a triple double in that game, if I'm not mistaken. New Orleans, Toronto. Toronto beats New Orleans by 4. Van Vliet with another 32. Minnesota hangs 141 on Houston. With Cat with 40 against Christian Wood. Denver beats OKC by 4. Nikola Jokic again leading. Dallas beats Chicago by 14, and Luka didn't even really have a huge game. It was kind of a low score. Chicago didn't break 100. So if you can hold a team to under 100 points in this NBA, you're most likely going to win. Golden State and Clay's game back beats Cleveland by 14. Curry with 28. Great to see Clay back on the court. I know let's dive into that a little bit. What a return for him.
Although I'm not a huge Warriors fan due to the trauma of KD, Klay Thompson has always been right behind Russell Westbrook as my favorite player in second place. I just love the way he plays. He can fit into, like, when you talk about guys who can fit in the big threes, because you can have big threes, but often they don't fit well. You think of I think of Kemba, Jalen, and Jason Tatum, but Klay could honestly fit on any Big 2 team and just be an immediate impact.
Damn, he called out all your Celtics and former Celtics. Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, Avery, after KD went to Golden State, lost a lot of respect for the Warriors, but the one guy I didn't was Klay. Back-to-back major injuries is tough. He looked very good in his return. Maybe didn't shoot the greatest, but movement-wise, he was attacking the hole. He had a sick dunk in his return.
Bouncy.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's got that bounce back. And the Warriors were already arguably the best team in the league, and then they got Klay Thompson back. They're going to get Wiseman back at some point. So, again, watch out for the Warriors.
Feels like a vintage Warriors with just a bit of more young talent, which is awesome to see. I really like Jordan Poole a lot. I mean, I'm a Michigan basketball guy, so obviously I'd be a fan, but I just like Jordan Poole.
Yeah, and he's really stepped up to the plate. Wiggins stepped up to the plate this year so far too. Not only just
I think you could argue Wiggins all-star.
I mean, maybe. I think
I'll bring another former Timberwolf. I think Cat should be an all-star.
Oh, absolutely.
Completely.
Yeah,
completely.
absolutely.
Cat is extremely underrated.
Yeah, and like we said with Jokic, I mean, even to a higher degree, Cat's defensive ability is not the greatest thing on the planet, but he takes over games night in and night out, really, with his ability to score the ball. He has a 10,000 post moves he can go to, and then he can step out to the 3 too. So
I honestly believe Cat may be, I believe he's the most offensively talented center in the league right now, and he could be one of the most offensively talented all around centers all time.
yeah, I mean, I think all time is interesting, but yeah, I think especially in today's current NBA, I think he's probably right behind Jokic as the best offensive center in the league, hands down. Like we said with Wiggins, I think Wiggins really gives me Harrison Barnes vibes. I mean, he's averaging 19 this year, 19, 4.5, and 2. Like, he gives me what Harrison Barnes could do. He can step out, stretch the three a little bit, plays just enough defense to get him by. But what he really brings to the team is the ability to slash and attack the hole. He's the best probably on Golden State at doing that. So it just gives them another dimension when you can't really step out to guard him, but you also can't take off because he can still kind of hit it. And then when you can kick out to guys like Steph and Clay, huge advantage.
He's been that main defender also. He's been that guy to pick up the number one scorer every time, and his shooting percentage from three. I mean, you look at his time with the Timberwolves, and then it was always questioned his shooting percentage. Right now, I believe it's in that 41%, which is just huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one more thing before we move past the Warriors. I think really the underlying thing with this team. So, I mean, the starting five is really good. The bench is solid because of the young guys. Kuminga's really good. And Moody this year, great draft picks. Both guys I wanted the Thunder to get. And the Thunder both slipped to the Warriors. But they're both very good. And then once they develop, you could have a starting lineup of Curry, Clay, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Wiseman. And then get Draymond off the bench, Moody off the bench.
Draymond won't come off the bench. Come on.
Draymond. I'm saying in the future. I'm not saying
in the future, yeah. In the future, yeah. But Draymond ain't coming off the bench this year.
Hell no.
Yeah, no. Draymond's way too valuable to that roster. But yeah, totally agree. And then once Clay gets healthy again and really starts to trust his Achilles and his ACL on opposite legs and go through that process once again, they'll start sticking him on the best defender, because when you're 6'7" and can move like he does, he's the best 3-and-D player in the league, hands down. So moving on, Sacramento, Portland wins by 15. Anthony Simons with 31, I believe, after the death of his grandfather. There, but what a motivating performance from him in that game. He hit an insane amount of threes, if I remember correctly.
I believe it was 7.
Yeah, I think you're right, 7 threes. So yeah, what a game from him there. Memphis, Los Angeles, are the Lakers. Memphis beats the Lakers by 8. Desmond Bane with 23, LeBron 35 in a losing effort. Milwaukee, Charlotte. Charlotte gets Milwaukee by 4 in back-to-back games. So that's very impressive from Charlotte. Shows you the potential that they have up there. Detroit gets Utah. That's a head scratcher there, in my opinion.
It's all the COVID outs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Donovan Mitchell with 31. He's really had to carry here these past few weeks. But he's the best. He's the number one on that team, no matter what. So Boston beats Indiana in overtime on the road. Brown with 26. I honestly think Jaylen Brown's been their best player this year. I don't really think it's that close. Brown had a 50 burger the other night, which I don't think it's on this week. So I think it was like 10 days ago. He dropped 50 against like Orlando, which for some reason we're in close games with Orlando. Tatum's just been a little bit inefficient for my liking, and Brown's better defensively. So I think Jaylen Brown's really just been the full package this year for Boston, even though they're sitting right at 500.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think for Boston to really grow right now, because they're in a slump, we can agree. If Tatum's not going to be the guy scoring, he has to be the leader, because there is no leadership on this team right now. And that's kind of where I think the losing, being right near 500 is. Bringing back Joe Johnson has been very, I guess, lifting to this team, maybe. I don't know. He's looked okay, but I don't know. I don't know about Boston.
I'm not a big fan of Schroeder either, honestly.
I can kind of agree, but for the deal they got him for to come in and play significant minutes.
That's true.
And he was wanting, 4-year 84, and he got about 1 year $6 million. I'll take that bargain any day of the week because
It's true.
he's a borderline starting point guard in the league, I think you could argue. He gives great scoring ability. His defense is just so below average.
He's
And
quite
Boston,
streaky also.
yeah, I mean, and Boston's in need for a little more defensive help. I think especially in the front court. I mean, Time Lord's a great Robert Williams is a great center defensively, but once you get past that, Boston's just not a deep team. When you get to the bench, Enes Kanter, I believe he's still on the roster. He's horrific defensively. He's the worst defensive center in the league, period. And he's
I
been
mean,
that
he
way
changed
for
his
the
name to
past 4
Freedom,
years.
so I mean,
Yeah, because he gives free buckets to the defense all night long. He's been horrible the past 4 years.
Always
Defense,
finds a way.
he's a great offensive rebounder, and he can give you 10 to 12 points any night. But defensively, he's terrible. And then their backup four is Grant Williams, not very good defensively either, undersized. He's like 6'8", and I don't hate Grant Williams. He's a post player, though, at the size of 6'8", which just doesn't really work. He can kind of step out to the three, but not really, though. And I don't know, they're just not a deep team. When they get to their bench, I just sit there and clench my teeth. So, yeah.
Canner's honestly the NBA side chick. Everyone picks him up and then dumps him the next week.
Well, yeah, it was between two boyfriends, though. Boston and Portland just trade her off back and forth.
Yeah, but like maybe I want him again, and then nope.
Anyway, New York takes San Antonio on the road. RJ Barrett with 31. Philly gets Houston on the road. Embiid with 31. You could have guessed. They beat Houston by 20. Cleveland gets Sacramento by 1. Jared Allen, the leading scorer, with 18. That's interesting there because those are two teams we think both have high potential. Cleveland's actually just put it to use this year, though. Portland takes down Brooklyn. That's huge at home. That's a big win. Durant with 28. So Kyrie was playing in this game, I think, because they were on the road. And for Brooklyn to be roided out, still can get the win against a dameless Brooklyn team. I think he was out this game. I'll double check on that. But yeah, interesting game there. Yeah, I think he was out. So moving on to Tuesday, we're almost done. Only 2 days left. Washington beats Oklahoma City. Kuzma with 29, Gilgeous-Alexander with 32. Stop shaking your head. OKC is horrible this year. I
know. Okay, I get it. If we're gonna lose and rebuild, you might as well lose. Okay.
Yeah.
I just gotta nod every now and then. It's just all I can think about the 6th graders, 7th graders. Just look for the future. Look for the future.
Go recruit. OKC should be hiring head scouts before they sign role players for their bench. Phoenix gets Toronto by 4 on the road. Memphis beats Golden State. Ja Morant with 29.
And the stare down.
And the stare down, yeah. And the stare down. Ja Morant, I agree with you, Avery. He's an all-star this year. I don't know about MVP level. 25, 7, and 6 is fairly MVP level. But yeah, he's been electric this year.
I know he's not there yet. I just have hope because I honestly like seeing the new young guy kind of show out.
I think next year.
I'm hoping for him. Yeah.
Next year, most definitely. The scoring, I think, is just going to get another slight uptick. Him and Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. are only getting better. And if they can start feeding off each other a little bit more, not Stockton Malone level. It won't ever be Stockton Malone level, but maybe incorporate a little more pick and roll. I think Ja can get his assists up near 10 and his points per game up near 30. And that's MVP level any year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Ja and Zion were in the same draft, correct?
Yeah.
You really look back at that and you really see how those investments have turned out so far, at least. Zion, it seems like well, with his weight increasing also, it seems like these injuries may end up being a reoccurring thing. And he doesn't have that uplift yet for his team like Ja has done this year.
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, when we get to the future, I mean, Ja plays almost just like Westbrook, but he's a better shooter and doesn't turn the ball over. So, I mean, when you take away the two aspects that Russell doesn't do well and you remove those, you have a fantastic player. And that's kind of what Ja Morant is. Minnesota loses to New Orleans in a heartbreaker by 3. Brandon Ingram hits the dagger with 1.3 seconds left on top of his game leading 33 points. Chicago beats Detroit by 46. Laughable numbers.
We have no room to talk. We have no room to talk.
No, we don't. Pistons and OKC and together.
Yep.
Hey, we lost by like 73, so 71, whatever it was. I don't care.
They win by 46. With their leading scorer only having 22 points in Vucevic. So impressive team win. The Clippers in a low score beat Denver by 2, 87-85 at home. The Clippers had 36 points halfway through the third quarter. Let me just say it that way. And Denver was up, I think, 27 at one point, and somehow they lose this game. I don't know how, but they managed a way. Amir Coffey was the leading scorer for the Clippers with 18, Aaron Gordon with 30. Yeah, I don't think you really can't say much more about that. And then the last day here, Wednesday, which is the day we were recording, Boston beats Indiana by 19 yet again. Jaylen Brown with 34, Charlotte beats Philadelphia, Embiid with 31. Gordon Hayward with 30. Washington gets Orlando by 6. Kuzma with 19. Seems like he's been their leading scorer a lot in the past few days, at least from what I've been reading off. Kind of surprising.
I know Beal's out with COVID, so that's a big reason for why. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Washington Wizards, Washington football team do their same kind of thing because Montrezl Harrell and Condavious Caldwell-Pope got into apparently a altercation, let's call it a fist fight, in the locker room at halftime. So, Washington sports, they really like, just sucker punching each other at this point because of, being called the Wizards and the football team.
Soon to be changed from football team, though.
Cannot wait.
Yeah. Moving on, Miami gets Atlanta by 24. New York, the Knicks, they take down Dallas by 23. RJ Barrett with 32, big statement win. Houston beats San Antonio. Eric Gordon with 31 had a little bit of a revival in his career this year. I think he was out for most of last year, if I'm not mistaken. He's a sharpshooter when he gets hot. DeJounte Murray with 32. I think is my most improved player this year. 19, 8, and 8. He plays defense like a madman. He's really the perfect all-around point guard, in my opinion.
I'm very high on DeJounte also. I just feel like, with the way he plays, I feel like he fits in the Pop's scheme perfectly. And he just seems like a San Antonio Spur to me. The name and everything, it's just speaks it.
Yeah, he's not flashy by any means. And he plays like we said, his numbers are defensively and all the way around are really comparatively to Lonzo Ball. He averages about 5 points a game. At least defensively, they're fairly comparable. He rebounds better though. I just want to see the shooting numbers, especially from 3, take a little bit of an uptick. He's actually down a little bit this year in his 3-point shooting. In this game against Houston, he had a 32-point triple-double. So, he just does it all for your team.
Can't complain too much.
Yeah, not everyone's perfect. So, moving on, Cleveland gets Utah by 20. Lamar Stevens is the leader for Cleveland. And then this is the statement win and probably of the year for me. Brooklyn beat Chicago by 26 on the road. Anything to say about that?
Spanking, complete spanking.
I mean, that's what a healthy Nets team can be. And, when they're all playing, this was, I think, really Chicago's first test, and they kind of flopped. I mean, what do you expect? Billy Donovan's the coach, even if he is coach of the year. Can't win the big ones. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's a 26-point loss. They're still on top of the East. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're not going to be able to go, all right, let's put Levine, DeRozan, and let's say Vucevic up against Harden, Kyrie, and Durant. Like,
Just can't
if you're
happen.
comparing like big threes, that's what's going to happen when you have arguably three of the best shooters and ball distributors in Harden and Irving on a team. Like, it's bound to happen. Chicago's a young team. They'll bounce back. I'm not really worried. I mean, again, first time seeing a healthy Nets team. So, I mean, I'm sure they smacked them early, it looks like. They were up 7. I mean, they were only up by 2 at the half, but then they really just turned it on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brooklyn unleashed full potential here in this game, brought out the paddles, especially when the third quarter came around. They went off 47-10 run, which really shut this game down in the third quarter. When they can all shoot the ball efficiently, even without either Kyrie or Harden, Joe Harris can step up to the plate and hit threes. He didn't last postseason, which is what I thought cost them the series against Milwaukee in game 6 and 7. Because if Joe Harris could throw a rock in the ocean in that series, they win the game, or they win that series, and they probably win the finals. Because I think they'd probably beat Phoenix in 5 or 6. Brooklyn's my favorite for the title this year, but it's just when they can all get open shots and knock them down, they're really unbeatable. And that's the simple formula for Brooklyn at this point when you're that offensively talented. So yeah, it's just tightening up the screws, and they really did that in this game against Chicago. And then last game we cover, Sacramento takes down Los Angeles, the Lakers. LeBron with 34 in a losing effort. LeBron's putting up like 35 a night, but they're all in losses. It kind of sucks if you're a Lakers fan.
Yeah.
All right. And then
okay, wait, real quick.
Yep.
I want to touch on Brooklyn. It's kind of like the whole, I think, Tennessee factor in the NFL. Like, Tennessee has to get home field in the playoffs for a healthy Derrick Henry. For the Nets, they have to get number 1. Because if they have home court in every series, you're a maximum guaranteed Kyrie Irving 4 games. Like,
yeah,
in the stretch, that's clutch. Because, I mean, even, like you said, even with Irving out, Harden and Durant can carry this team. Joe Harris, though not in the playoffs, is a bucket. And Patty Mills has been picking up the slack. But I think for the Nets, they have to get 1. If they get 1, I think they win the title. If not, again, if you're not gonna have Kyrie for half the series, that's tough. It's like if you were switching quarterbacks every drive, like to get a feel for the game. Like, you just gotta commit. Like, you gotta commit to 1 and move forward. Rather, it's weird to say, but maybe once the playoffs hit, they start Patty Mills and bring Kyrie off the bench in road games just to keep that core 5 starting. Because when teams are healthy and clicking in the playoffs, it's a dangerous thing.
It's a great analogy. I can really relate to that quarterback switching analogy that you had for this whole senior year.
I knew that was coming.
I threw up a lot.
It's a fair point. I think with the talent that Brooklyn has, I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge now being a bucket that they can go to in the playoffs, because he can really step out to the mid-range and shoot as a center, which is very valuable. But I don't know if they necessarily need the 1 personally. I understand you're losing Kyrie for a game every series, and that could hurt, especially when you hit the ECF or the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals. But I mean, this roster is just so loaded all the way around. It's kind of weird to say, but Kyrie is just the cherry on top, really, at this point. When you look at it from how this season has gone for them, but it's a massive cherry on top because he's so valuable, and he takes this team from an A to an A plus, really, when you look at it. So this is going to be the last part of today's episode for the NBA. We're just going to talk about some trade targets. The deadline's coming up. We're just going to roll through 10, 11 players, name what we think is going to be the best fit for them, and keep it moving with a little bit of analysis. So let's just get to the big dog first. Number 1, Ben Simmons.
I mean, that's a tough spot. I mean, I'd almost like to see him on the Mavericks. I'd say just to get Luka some help. And I mean, it's hard to stretch you have to stretch the floor if you have Simmons. And it's just hard to find a team for him.
I think with their asking price, you have to look at a team that's willing to give up a star or at least a good player. I mean, it's always Portland, which makes sense, but now with Dame out, I don't think they make that move right now. Maybe in the offseason they do, if he's not moved by the trade deadline this year. Watch out for Miami. I think they have enough depth and they have picks that if they seriously wanted him, that's a scary team with Bam, Ben, Butler, and maybe Kyrie if he's, I mean, not Kyle Lowry. I mean, I think you would have to give up Hero, but I mean, when Ben Simmons is playing, he is so good. It's just you can't give it to him in the clutch. That's his only knock, I think. You just can't rely when he plays point guard. He can't be reliable in the clutch. If he's playing power forward, that's a different story.
I think if he picked up a 14-foot, just little shot where he could hit it 36% of the time, he would just have that much more value.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd just love to see him get something from like 14 feet out, maybe even 18. Just
yeah.
Other than that, though,
he just adds so much about it. He would be probably the most valuable player in the league if he had any kind of consistency from stretching the floor from 14, 15 feet out. For me, I've been saying Portland all year, but like you said, with Dame being hurt, I don't think that's the case. Dallas is very interesting. I think Sacramento, personally, they're willing to, and you keep De'Aaron, they have the trade assets. Philly's really looking to get a lot of pieces for him. And Sacramento has young talent that they can hand away and contracts to match Simmons' gigantic hunk of money that he's getting. There have been talks of Simmons pairing with Tobias Harris for a trade, which is like $85 million in cap room, which is insanity. Yeah, good luck finding a trade partner for that. It's going to be, I think it's literally impossible for that even to kind of happen. But when you have pieces like Buddy Hield, who we're going to get into in a little bit, I think Tyrese Halliburton could be thrown into that trade. Marvin Bagley's been asking out for like 5 years now. And Sacramento's first rounders are definitely valuable. You had one or two of those in there. I think you got yourself a trade for Ben Simmons, who can run the fast break. When Philadelphia had Ben Simmons, they were the best fast break team in the league, which is just another one of his many qualities besides being able to shoot, which hurts yourself in the modern NBA. But I think when you have a team like Sacramento, it forces him to shoot because none of the other guys around him, if you trade Hield and you trade Halliburton, the only guy that can really, really get buckets on that team is Fox. So then he forces himself to be an offensive threat, and it'll develop his game, I think, a lot to where Sacramento could become a playoff contender later down the road. Fox needs a secondary ball handler if you trade Halliburton.
Yeah. That actually is that's a pretty good take. I could see that.
But but it's just Sacramento is not aggressive in doing anything.
Yeah.
2, I guess we'll pair 2 and 3 together. It's 3 players. Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, Karis LeVert. The Pacers are really looking to get a sense this season has been really a failure. So far, 15 and 27 through 42 games, I think we said. Yeah, they're absolutely looking to get rid of everyone except for maybe Sabonis. So we can probably skip Sabonis because I think they'll end up keeping him at the end of the day. So we'll do Miles Turner and LeVert. Miles Turner first. If you guys have opinions. I guess I can go.
I was gonna say, I thought.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So Sabonis, I don't think is going anywhere. I think Miles Turner. I like Miles Turner to Dallas. They've been really missing that center outside of Dwight Powell for that 1 year. I think he would mesh well with Luka and Porzingis. If you keep Porzingis, I think you would. If you're getting a guy like Turner, it's more of like maybe few pieces, like young pieces and like a pick maybe. Yeah, and then LeVert, I just feel bad for LeVert because he had a great thing going in Brooklyn. They trade him to make room to get Harden, and he ends up in Indiana, and they just haven't been the same because we thought Brogdon was going to be this up here, and Sabonis was going to be right behind him. Like Indiana looked like a scary team. I really think LeVert would fit well with the Lakers. I think how the Lakers go about that, couldn't tell you, but I think he's a great fit with the Lakers because then he plays at year 2. He's a bucket, really. He's an offensive threat, and he's pretty good defensively. I think if they were to get him, then your lineup is, if you keep Westbrook, you got Westbrook, LeVert, LeBron, Davis, and whichever 50 center you want to throw in. I don't know, DeAndre Jordan. That's a very good team out west. That boosts the Lakers up quite a bit if they could get a guy like Karis LeVert.
I mean, depending on the asking price for LeVert, which I think would be relatively lower than it was when he was at Brooklyn, I'd like to see him fit in a spot like Cleveland, because I mean Cleveland has a great thing meshing right now, and I think he could adapt to that pretty well. And I'd have to agree with you, Logan, on Miles Turner also to the Mavericks. I mean, you just completely convinced me.
Yeah. I think Turner to the Mavericks is a great fit. I would pair them together and send them both to the Lakers in exchange for Russell Westbrook. I think the Russ experiment should be over at this point. I don't think it's going to work. LeBron and Westbrook just play too similarly to where LeBron is being able to stretch the floor lately. He's been shooting the 3 really well, but Westbrook can't do that whatsoever. And LeBron needs shooters and guys that can score without being inefficient and turning the ball over. Russ is none of those things that suits LeBron's play style. He turns the ball over. He's inefficient, and he can't shoot anything outside a 15-footer efficiently. So I think if you trade both those, maybe if you're lucky, you get like a second also in that deal. And because LeVert, like you said, Logan, fantastic as a 2, because then you can start Nunn at the 1, who I think is a solid starting point guard. And then, or maybe you ship a first and you upgrade, you trade Nunn in a first for a better starting point guard if you feel like you need to do so. And then you run LeVert at your 2, who can shoot really well and get straight buckets for you. You run LeBron at the 3. You run Davis at the 4 because he hates playing the center with a severe passion and never wants to do it ever again. And then you can play Turner at the 5, who can also shoot very well. And you have 2 rim protectors in Davis and Turner, which gives you just an all-around fantastic starting 5. I don't know where else I think Turner individually to Dallas is perfect. I don't know if I had to trade LeVert where he would go individually. I'd have to think about that a little more. Maybe
I think you could package them both to Dallas.
I think you could do that as well.
I think you would have to give up Porzingis, so that's the thing.
Yeah.
maybe a team like, I don't know, Cleveland, who we said needs a 2 or a 3 that could score. Because Levert's still fairly young. I think that would be interesting. A team like Memphis, I think, could be perfect for Karis LeVert. Actually, now that I think about it, because I know we've seen Desmond Bain evolve, we've seen Dylan Brooks evolve, and you get a third guy in there that you know is going to start for you, and you can play 2 out of the 3 at the same time and just have them rotate around. Maybe you switch in Kyle Anderson with those guys. You have a great 4-man wing rotation, because I think they got to buy in now that they're the 3 seed in the playoffs sitting currently. So I think LeVert to Memphis would be very interesting as well.
I could see them both to Memphis because Memphis really doesn't have a stud center. Because I mean, I love my boy the Kiwi Steven Adams, but he's not anything special. And like you said, if they're gonna buy in, you might as well buy in now. I mean, could you imagine if your lineup is Jaw, LeVert, whoever at the 3, let's say Desmond Bain, Triple J, and Miles Turner? That's a championship team. That's a young, talented, championship contending team out west.
Yeah, and Jaren Jackson Jr. isn't a great rim protector. I think he had 3 blocks and 5 steals the other night, which I think I forgot to mention when we went through the I think it was like the LA game or the Golden State game or something like that. But yeah, when you bring Miles Turner in, who averages about 2 blocks a game, it's a great value. 4 is Buddy Hield from the Kings, who's getting paid a crap ton of money, but salary's looking to go down. It's 23 million this year, but then it goes down to 21 and then 19 in the next 2 years. So you're looking about 3 years, 60 million to bring in a shooter on your roster.
I mean, Buddy, honestly, I don't think he's enough bang for your buck. I don't see a lot of teams searching for him, honestly, just because, I mean, he's just too much in my opinion. But, I mean, he brings great shooting and he's a decent defender. I just honestly don't know where he'd land, though, for a team that want to spend the money on him.
I think for a guy like him, he's a classic 3-team trade that, I mean, I'll lay it roughly out. Let's go the Kings, the Lakers, and the Knicks. So you go Buddy Hield to the Lakers, Westbrook to the Knicks. Knicks send over, I don't know, a couple young players, maybe like a Kevin Knox or maybe Kemba, and you just figure it out from there. Because I think Westbrook would fit better in New York. I think Buddy Hield is something the Lakers need. And the Kings can bring in all these assets, and then you know what you do with all those assets? You trade him to get Ben Simmons. Like, I think like what Bailey said, I think the move for the Kings is Ben Simmons, but I think you just want to have enough pieces so you're not giving up 2 of your 3 young studs. Because like even if Bagley wants out, okay, fine, get Bagley out of there and maybe trade him to the Knicks. I don't know. But then you're going to be getting a lot of either picks or a lot of young developmental players, which the Kings have a lot of. But then you can flip those. Like you can flip those to get a Ben Simmons. You can flip those to get a CJ McCollum. You can flip those to get maybe those pieces out in Indiana. So I think Buddy Hield, like you said, Avery, too big of a contract to move. But I think he's the classic 3-team trade player.
Yeah. And I love what you said with Westbrook to the Knicks. I'd love to see Westbrook on the Knicks. I mean, are you kidding me? Madison Square Garden would sound like the beaches of Normandy every home game. Are you kidding me?
Yes, sir. I like him and RJ together. I don't know why. I think him and RJ could work.
And he'll just bring a new energy to the arena. I mean, it's already just complete crackhead energy there every game when they're when they're 16th in the freaking East. But now, I mean, you bring in Westbrook and his energy. I think that place would be the most fun place to go to for a basketball game.
Yeah. It sounded like the Kings might shop him and their next guy together, which would be Marvin Bagley. But I think for Buddy Hield individually, if he was just to get traded straight up, I don't think he goes to a contender like you guys said. The money's just too much. $20 million for a non-star player. The NBA is all about building super teams nowadays and big threes. And Buddy Hield is not a part of any big three. I think at the end of the day, even though he has elite shooting ability, at the end of his career is going to be the classic 2 years, 16, 18 million for him to come off your bench or start, be a rotational guy and just shoot the lights out. But I think for his contract currently in the next 3 years, I can see San Antonio being a fit. Just because they have an enormous amount of cap space. He'd be nice to pair with DeJounte Murray because he can kick out and really pass it out. And I mean, you have younger, more defensive centric guys like Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell as your other wings and Lonnie Walker. So you can guy that can come in and really score from the three. I think Buddy Hield, because I also have a ton of cap space, would be an actually fit, but otherwise it's going to be like Orlando or Detroit, just because of the contract. And he probably won't get traded unless it's with Bagley, who is our next player. So you can package the two together if you want.
I think Bagley would be kind of fun in Phoenix.
Phoenix.
It could be a good rebound.
I know Phoenix, right? Like, I think he's not their classic power forward like a Jay Crowder or a Frank Kaminsky, but I think even if he comes off the bench in Phoenix, I think he would be happier. I think he'd probably perform better because that second unit for the Suns isn't anything crazy, and he could be that star on that second unit. And even if you start him, that's starting five with Chris Paul, Booker, Bridges, Bagley, and Ayton. That's what you need. I think they're a defensive / rebounding big away from just pretty much kicking the Warriors out of getting to the finals. I think it's bold. I don't think Phoenix would do it just because after, you trade a lot to get Chris Paul into Phoenix. But I think if they're wanting to win now because Chris Paul is getting older, that's interesting. I think Minnesota would be kind of fun to put him at the 4 next to Cat. I think those two may not offensively make sense, but defensively, Bagley makes up for what Towns can't do defensively. But I think one of those two, I think he stays out west. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'd love for Boston to go get him, even though I don't think that's going to happen. I've been looking for Boston to get a power forward / center since Anthony Davis, because I honestly think by us not trading for Anthony Davis, we've probably given up 2 rings. I really think that, because if you package like Brown, Smart, and 3 firsts, and you went and got a guy like Anthony Davis, you rock Tatum and Anthony Davis for Lord knows how long, with how young of a core that would have been. I really think that's 2 or 3 championships. Out in the East, especially. But I'm looking for Boston to go get power forward. I think Bagley would be a great fit just because he can step out, hit the 3. Boston is still a little undersized, and they don't have a great 4. It's Schroeder, Smart. They play Tatum at the 4. And I think if you can move Smart down off the bench and still start Robin Williams and then play Bagley, move Tatum to the 3, and Jaylen Brown back down to his original position at the 2 and just have Smart, he'd be a perfect 6-man in this scenario. And you trade, I don't know who it would really be. You trade probably like 1 or 2 firsts for him. The Celtics have a ton of picks. Trade like Aaron Nesmith, who was a recent draft pick, and a first. And I think you build a more well-rounded roster to buy Boston back into the playoffs. Not Boston, because that's a little bit of homing from me. Charlotte would be interesting, I think. You could run pick and roll with LaMelo, which I think is a very desirable thing to want to do, even though they have PJ Washington up there. They could just really insert a rotation of young guys, maybe just play Bagley at the center, because I don't really think they have a great center. So yeah, you could play Bagley at the center there at 6'11" and run him through there. I think Charlotte would be a great option just because he's still so young. He meshes right in with that youth of that roster. Number 6, more of a veteran guy for San Antonio, Thaddeus Young, who's having a fantastic year this year. Now, Thad
What team
Young
has
is like, it's really confusing to me where he would go.
Yeah.
He's more of a veteran guy. I understand that. But like, dude just can't shoot whatsoever. I don't really think he gets traded. And that's always an option. I don't think he gets traded personally. He's an undersized power forward, 6'8", 235, which is hilarious that he's undersized. But that's what most shooting guards are these days, is 6'8", 230. Yeah, I just don't really know where Thad Young go. I think he probably just ends up staying in San Antonio.
When I think of contending teams, and none of the needs they have really pops up with Thaddeus Young at all. I mean, he just doesn't really have a fit with any of these teams that are trying to contend.
Yeah, because I think with a vet, it's more, you don't trade him to a team that's young and upcoming. I mean, maybe if it's a really young team like Charlotte, for veteran leadership with him and Hayward, that one would be interesting. I think Miami could be interesting. Just add another piece to that team because I don't think you would have to give up a ton for him. Maybe a picker, maybe a pick in like a really young player that just isn't developing because any young player that goes to San Antonio just develops. So I don't know. I think that's about it. But I'm with you, Bailey. I don't see a way he gets traded just because he's a vet. And a lot of these teams that are in pushes for contending are outside of Charlotte, very old. Maybe Chicago's the other one, but I don't see him going back to Chicago. But yeah, I just see him staying put in San Antonio.
That's what I was just thinking. Chicago also, but not very plausible.
Man, he was just there 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Signed a free agent deal to go to San Antonio. Maybe Minnesota, just because they need a little more size at the three. I mean, Malik Beasley's their starting three. He's 6'4". So when you're running Ant at the two, who's 6'3", 6'4", D'Angelo Russell at the one, who's like 6'1", 6'2", they have a really undersized backcourt. And if you want to really run Thad Young at the 3/4, you could run him there, but you're not giving up anything. I don't really think to get Thad Young, even though he does bring great veteran leadership. 7 is a guy that can really get buckets off the bench for you. And a sharpshooter, Eric Gordon, of the Houston Rockets, who is honestly, we mentioned him a couple of times when we went through the schedule, really kind of tearing it up this year. Could bring some veteran leadership in there. I know these aren't the most appealing, but we're gonna get a couple into the end that are actually better. I don't know why they have them listed this way, but Eric Gordon. I'll start here. I think Philadelphia could really be a shop for Eric Gordon. I know they're rocking Seth Curry at the 2. Like he's also, I think they're about the same height, but Philly's always looking to bring in more shooting. When we talked about the Ben Simmons Portland deal, I think CJ McCollum would have been the main attraction and not Damian Lillard, because I just think Damian Lillard's untradeable for Ben Simmons. But when it comes to Philly's roster as it is constructed now, they don't really have a 3. I mean, Tobias Harris kind of plays the 4 for them. And they don't really have a 3 that can just go out and get it like that. Matisse Thybulle's super small. As great as a defender he is, he's terrible offensively. So they could add in another weapon come playoff time, who's been there before with those runs with James Harden and Chris Paul in those Western Conference Finals. I think Philadelphia.
I mean, we keep coming back to it, but I even say like the Lakers would be a good fit for him. The Lakers need shooting more than anything right now. I mean, I know he's a bit on the older side, which isn't what the Lakers need right now, but I agree with your take on the Sixers also. They're always looking for shooting. I mean, it even looks more enticing if Ben Simmons would be playing right now to pick up Aaron Gordon. Imagine having Seth Curry and Eric Gordon on the court in a corner while Simmons is driving to the lane. That just sounds appeasing.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ben would love that, but he ain't playing.
Nope.
I think for a guy like Eric Gordon, I don't think he goes I think he just rots away in Houston right now. But I think two teams that I think Atlanta's interesting to bring him off the bench. Maybe be a mentor to Reddish, but I know they both play very differently. But I think that's interesting, and I think just for bench depth, Milwaukee, they could always use another shooter, but I really just don't see him leaving Houston. I like the LA take because, of course, LA always seems to be like either they're in the top 5 for most of these free agents because it's LA. Like, what can we say?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what else to say. It's LA.
Yeah. Goran Dragic is number 8 on this list for the Raptors. This list is done by sportingnews.com if you want to check out the article. Goran Dragic, kind of interesting, I guess. $20 million salary, though, which tempts me to think that he's probably going to stay because they did that swap and trade for Kyle Lowry. Miami did at the start of this year, which has worked out great for Miami. If you're looking for a team that desperately needs a point guard, I don't know if you're really paying $20 million for Goran Dragic. Really just looking at it. The Knicks always paid big money for point guards. So maybe the Knicks would do something like that, get a little more veteran leadership in there because their team is still very young. But I don't really know if you want to run 2 guards with Kemba and Dragic. That just seems kind of off-putting to me. If you want to back up one in Chicago, Dragic would be interesting. I just don't know how they get the cap work done there. I don't know. Dragic at this stage in his career, I mean, could give me kind of Kirk Heinrich vibes if he plays for Chicago ever again, or if Dragic gets traded to Chicago, that'd be interesting. But otherwise, he probably stays, in my opinion. I don't really think any of these teams in the West are really desperate to pick up a backup one. Besides maybe Denver because Jamal Murray is coming off an injury, but they can't pay him $20 million because they just gave Michael Porter Jr. that 5-year, $205 max extension. So, if anything, I think he stays in Toronto because they're still a playoff team. They need that depth. But if he does get traded, the Knicks could potentially be shoppers.
Yeah, I think he's going to end up being stuck in Canada for a while.
I think if Toronto traded the piece that got rid of Kyle Lowry and not even give it a year, I think the whole country would erupt. But I mean, really, outside of that, gosh, and I'm looking over because I have every NBA team's pennant up here, and I just don't see a team that needs a backup point guard for $20 million. I mean,
I'm with you. I think he stays. I'm with you.
Yeah.
He stays. I think if there's any team that's going to go shopping, though, it's just the Knicks, just to bring in more veteran leadership. He can kind of shoot, and
maybe Orlando.
Just because they can do it.
Just because they can do it.
They can afford it. They can afford it. Good mentor to the young guards and the Suggs that they got down there. I think that's interesting.
And Cole Anthony.
But and Cole Anthony. I just don't think you're trading for that old of a point guard to be a mentor. At that point, might as well make him a player personnel. And again, I don't think the country of Canada would enjoy the piece that they got in return for Kyle Lowry being traded within a year. So,
yeah. Speaking of Orlando, I think these last two are fairly much more interesting. Terence Ross of the Magic, dude's just a straight bucket off the bench. He's really in 6 man of the year voting for me. He's right up there with Tyler Hero when Tyler doesn't start. He's averaging almost 16 off the bench. So we talked about scoring. I think there's 2 teams. I think it's the Lakers and Milwaukee. Maybe even the Clippers get in there if Paul George is going to be hurt. I know Terrence Mann really stepped up to the plate last year, but throw another Terrence in the mix. Go get Terrence Ross. You get a little more veteran guy. He hasn't been in the playoffs much, but offense is just so highly desired in today's NBA. I think Terrence Ross can really be just a great fit for anyone's bench. And The Magic are just looking for draft capital. So I think it'd be a steal for the Lakers if they don't end up getting Levert to go get Terence Ross.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think Terrence could fit anywhere also on any of the contending teams, but I really like your take on Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee would be very interesting, and they don't really have that pure scorer type of guy that most of these other teams have that can come off the bench.
Yeah, I think teams out west are going to be desirable for Terence Ross. I like the Lakers one for sure. I could see a team like Minnesota maybe going out and getting Terence Ross, but I really like him either in Dallas or Memphis. I think if he goes to Dallas, that just bolsters that lineup. Yeah, and then Memphis, I mean, we said it earlier, like if they could get Levert, all right, you strike out with Levert, just if the Lakers do too. I think Terence Ross for half a year with that young group coming off the bench, I think it's a lot of these teams out west that are contending that are going to be very intrigued with Terence Ross. Because, I mean, you look out east, I really agree. I mean, the only team out west is probably Milwaukee. But, I mean, I think one of these contenders out west is going to make a hard push for him. Because you can give up picks. Like, if you give up your first round pick next year and you're picking at 30, it's not going to mean anything.
Yeah.
Like, if you win the ship because you get Terence Ross in there, there's no point keeping that.
Yeah. This, I think, is one of the better ones. Number 10, Jeremy Grant of the Pistons. He was second in most valuable player voting last year behind Julius Randle, averaging 23, 5, and 3. And he can really get to it on the defensive end. I'm going to go first here because I just have one that immediately pops in mind. We talked about Levert. I think it's Cleveland. If they go out, I think Jeremy Grant is really what they want Isaac Okoro to really look like at the end of the day, being able to really get some defense in, guard the 2 through 4, maybe even the 1 occasionally. Because I know Okoro's a little shorter, I think, than Grant, but Grant is his ability to stretch, shoot the 3, and then just make just enough to keep the offense moving. I think Jeremy Grant in Cleveland is kind of the 3 that they're really looking for to pair with guys like Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Sexton when he comes back off the ACL, and Darius Garland is just another guy for him to make too. So I think Jeremy Grant is perfect in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, he lately he's found himself on more so contending teams, and he's kind of been a role player, and that's why I'd also agree with Cleveland and seeing him take on a bigger role there, like we saw in the Pistons and what he was able to do. And I think he'd just have a pretty great role there. And I believe he usually plays power forward, but I think the transition to small forward would be very interesting, especially with his height. I believe he's 6'9", so he'd be a pretty good height for that set.
He'd be a nice height for that. I think it's funny how a lot of these guys were former Thunder players, because that just proves what great of an organization we are with Sabonis and Grant being here.
Oh.
But with saying that, I think he goes back to a team he's been with. I like him in Denver. I think he was good in Denver with MPJ getting hurt. I think that's a really good fit for Denver to have that second option outside of Jokic. But I mean, I want to say he stays put, but I don't really see him staying in Detroit because they don't win basketball games. Toronto could be interesting, and you move maybe like Pascal to the center and play really kind of more of a small ball. I think that's intriguing because then you've got Scotty Barnes at the 3, or flip-flop him, doesn't matter. But yeah, I would say either Denver or Toronto is a really good fit. Maybe San Antonio, but they're not really contending.
You still have OG Anunoby up there too in Toronto too, that those 3 or 4 guys can rotate in and out, and then have like Chris Boucher play the center, play one of them at the 2 even, if you really have to. Because Anunoby, I think, can play the 2 a little bit. Do you guys have any of your own before we close out this episode that you want to bring? I know we talked about Russ to MSG.
Yeah.
Do you guys see Russ going anywhere else?
I honestly think, I mean, with the way the player that Russ is, his shining moments in OKC was when he was able to run the show and where he had a lot of control. And I think even though Kemba's with the Knicks and RJ is there, I think he can take a lot of control, and I think he can mesh pretty well with some of these Knicks guys. I don't know about Kemba from his previous experience with the Celtics. I don't know how well he'd mesh with another player, but I think it'd be very exciting to see Russ in Madison Square.
I mean, with the Lillard injury now, I don't think a McCollum move's likely. For Dallas, Porzingis is playing okay right now, especially when Luka was out. But Porzingis is so inconsistent. If you can ride high on his value and get a very talented either three that can shoot with Luka at the point or a dominant center to run the pick and roll with, I think you could see Porzingis on the move. But he's one of those guys that his contract is just too much to probably match with a trade.
Russ is $44 million a year right now.
But I don't think Russ is like, I don't think you look at the Mavericks and go, oh, they're a Russell Westbrook. Like,
no, absolutely.
I mean,
so,
it's interesting because you could put Russ at the point and Luka at the three, but Luka's such more of a primary ball handler. They just wouldn't mesh. It's the same thing with LeBron right now. Tobias, like we said, Tobias being packaged with Simmons, I don't think's likely. Tobias being traded, though, separately could be interesting. His contract is very big. But if there's a team that's on the cusp of making a run, that could be interesting. Just his contract is very big. Memphis is young. They have the money. You can maybe play Tobias at the three, maybe get Valanciunas off of that roster with his contract. That would be, I think, relatively close money-wise.
Valanciunas that's New Orleans. Steven Adams is in Memphis.
That's right. Steven Adams is in Memphis. My bad.
Which they're paying him a lot too.
Very true. I think if a team's really like a young team like the Grizzlies are, I think Tobias to Memphis could be scary.
Yeah. I would go Tobias to Cleveland yet again. I just think Cleveland needs to go and get a three that can shoot and play a little bit of defense. And Tobias Harris does that in bunches. And they got all the cap in the world because Sexton's doesn't have a very big deal yet. I think it's almost his payday. But Garland's going to be on a rookie contract for a while. They just paid Jared Allen. Evan Mobley's going to be on his rookie contract for a while. And Okoro's still on his rookie contract. So they got tons of cap room to rock with. And Tobias Harris would be very interesting. I'd love to see Russ in Toronto. We talked about his ability, his wanting to run the floor. And Toronto's just like a hype spot for him to play. They got shooters all the way around there. So OG Anunoby can shoot. You can move Van Vliet to the two, which was what he did with Kyle Lowry. So that wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary. And then you got Scotty Barnes there still, Siakam there still, Boucher there still, who can hit the three and rim protect and run pick and roll with him when need be. I think Russ would be a perfect fit in Toronto. I think if there's any coach in the league that can get him in, it's Nick Nurse, and figure out a play style for him where he can really just run his own show. And I think that's really the only spot besides, like you guys said, maybe the Knicks. I think that's really the only spot I could see where Russ really gets his own personal freedom to do whatever the hell he wants.
I can see the Raptors being a better fit for him just because of Kemba, I'd really say. I don't know why the Knicks sound so enticing to me, but I feel like Russell Westbrook and the Knicks just go hand in hand.
I like Toronto. It's just a matter of what Toronto has to give up to get him there.
And they still have Masai Ujiri. So, and he's very aggressive in being able to go out and get guys. You saw what he did with Kawhi Leonard. Not saying Toronto's a finals contender this year by any means, but that is interesting what they'd have to give up.
Yeah.
It's like I think the obvious one would be Siakam, and you keep Davis at the 3. I mean the 5.
I think Anunoby will go.
You think Anunoby would go?
Yeah, I think they need that 3 and D.
Yeah, they'd want more than that. It can't just. I don't think
Right,
the money
Anunoby
the money wouldn't match. Maybe it'd be Dragic, because then maybe that's where Dragic gets in some matches, and then you have Anunoby, because they're looking for that one still. I think because if you trade Westbrook, you need a guard.
Yeah.
You go Anunoby and Dragic, and then you throw 1 or 2 firsts in. If they need a score still, then you can throw in Gary Trent if need be. I think they actually have the assets to go get them. And I think they can really run a nice offense around them, period.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Toronto's grown on me, baby. You got Toronto to grow
Toronto
on me.
is growing on me.
Yeah, I
love
a good option.
up north.
I doubt he gets traded, though. I really don't think Russ gets traded whatsoever. One more we were talking about, I think this is going to be the last one, too, is John Collins. Like you said, of Atlanta, because he was traded. So maybe he demands a trade right before. Even though I really feel like he's a perfect fit for Atlanta, and he just signed the extension, it really isn't working. So how does a trade for John Collins work then, and where would he go to?
I honestly think he's a great fit also. I don't think, I mean, you look at Atlanta's problems and you look at their assets and you just can't see why they're winning. But I think it's just their depth and their defense. And I believe Collins does struggle on the defensive side of it. So that's probably what may cause the move. And if I had to choose anywhere for him, I mean, he costs a lot right now, probably more than he should. If I had to make a move, I'd say I'd like to see him on the Mavericks if they get a chance. I'd rather see Miles Turner on the Mavericks, but I wouldn't mind having Collins there. I think that'd be a big showtime between Luka and Collins with the lobs, because Collins is great at throwing those down.
Yeah, I think Dallas is almost perfect, because Porzingis is 7'3". Like, I think people forget that the dude is 7'3". There's no excuse for him not to be able to play center. Unless he's doing his Anthony Davis and just says he doesn't want to play it. And like looking at his stats on the year, he'd be perfect to match with Luka. He's shooting 43% from 3 this year. He's 50-40-80 club. He's grabbing 8 boards. He has a block a game, almost a steal a game, and 17.5 points. He's kind of like a Jaren Jackson Jr. to me, a little bit in that sense. I think another great fit would be Charlotte. Because John Collins is also very young still, and his ability to go around and do everything, lobs from LaMelo would be electric. So I think those would be the 2 spots, Dallas and Charlotte.
I mean, it could be biased. I would love him in OKC with Shea. I think that would be a great young 2 pieces to build around. And OKC has the money and assets to do it. I just think if you start your core out with Shea and John Collins, I think the rest falls into place with a Josh Giddey, or maybe, I definitely don't give up this year's pick, because I would love the Chet Holmgren experience of Shea, Giddey, Collins, and Chet Holmgren. That's interesting. I think just by how much his contract is and what Atlanta would probably want to get out of him, I think OKC makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that, but I'd love to see Collins in OKC, especially with how much draft capital we have. I mean, at any point we can build a young core when we want to, whether that be trading or drafting. It just really depends on what route they're going to go. And I honestly think that for now, for these next 3 years, they're going to go the draft route.
Yeah, I think OKC would be a great pick too. Like you said, Collins is still young. Um, he's only
He's
24
what,
years
25?
old. Um, I think another thing, like we just said with Tobias Harris, maybe just a straight swap with him in Philly because Philly's looking for a new power forward. The money matches, and maybe Atlanta looks for a little more veteran leadership around there. And Philly throws in 1 or 2 draft picks, and you call it a day. Maybe they throw in Matisse Thybulle, get some more defense off the bench because Bogdanovich isn't a great defender. DeAndre Hunter's a very good defender. Cam Reddish is eh. So I think those two could be straight swap. But yeah, is there anyone else?
I don't think so. I think that wraps up.
We
for
got
me.
everyone. Yeah, so that's gonna wrap
Maybe,
up.
maybe I mean, it's doubtful to happen. Kyrie, I doubt it, but
Kyrie. Man,
there's talks of it, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I honestly don't see it happening. But I mean, if it would happen, that'd just completely shake the NBA.
I mean, if Brooklyn's really pressed about getting rid of him, Lillard, maybe a Kyrie for Lillard thing, that would be insane. I think I'd love Lillard watching Lillard play with Harden and Durant. But I think Lillard really just has a mentality that he wants to be the main guy and
Yeah.
he'd be the 2B option in Brooklyn. So I just don't think that works. Maybe Toronto. Like we said, just with Westbrook, Lillard could do the same thing in Toronto, with I think a better supporting cast. And I'd be very interested to see Lillard in a Raptors jersey if he gets traded, but we're talking Kyrie. Kyrie also Toronto.
He's linked. He's been linked to Dallas, which is interesting.
I just don't see Kyrie and Luka working together.
No.
I don't think personalities match right there.
No. And like ball dominant, like we're watching it with LeBron and Westbrook right now. It doesn't work. When you have 2 ball dominant guys, it does not work. The reason why Giannis and Middleton work so well is because Giannis can do whatever he wants because Middleton is an elite catch and shoot player and he can create his own dribble or shot off the dribble with a minimum amount of dribbles. So he's not just sitting there holding the ball for 20 seconds doing spamming between the leg moves and then jacking up a 3. He's doing much more than that. So yeah, I just don't see Kyrie and Luka working together.
Yeah.
Trade deadline is going to be interesting.
What's up?
Trade deadline is going to be interesting this year, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a bunch of great value everywhere. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode. We had to catch up on 2 months. So a little bit of opinion going around here. We'll try, maybe since football is starting to slow down, we'll try to ramp these up to more closer to once a week, to like similar to what the Empty Net is doing with their hockey podcast. So we'll try and do the same over here at the NBA. Maybe once every other week, something like that. And we got our NBA specialist, Avery Dohner, coming on.
Shout out Blaine Hoops.
What's that?
Shout out Blaine Hoops.
Yeah, if you're in the area, like I am, go watch these guys play basketball. They really know what they're doing out there. A couple big wins this year. So yeah, go watch them if you can. If you're in the area of Blaine, Washington, I will be also watching those games. So go check them out. That's gonna do it for this episode. Shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring. Code Hurdle Podcast, HURDLEPODCAST, for $20 off your first purchase. Speaking of Hurdle Podcast, go follow the Instagram at Hurdle Podcast, HRDL Podcast, because we post every time an episode goes up. If you want to just listen to audio, Spotify's the way to do that. Hurdle Sports, go down to podcasts. Mine and Logan's name is on it. Easy to find. We're still the first one up there. So subscribe, like, share, comment on this video. We appreciate all those. And we really just appreciate you guys for watching. The support has been fantastic. 130 views on the FCS championship. So we can't thank you guys enough for that. It's really just been a fantastic last couple of weeks as far as Hurdle podcast stuff goes. So big shout out to you guys. Anything else you guys want to add?
Nope.
In the
Great being on.
comments,
What's up?
give us who you have as MVP right now.
That's a great one. There we go. Comments, MVP. Fantastic. I love it. You know my take. I'm going Jokic. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. Avery down below, Logan somewhere, Bailey right here. We're out. Peace, guys.